Something happened. Maybe years ago. Maybe a decade ago. Maybe so long ago that the person involved has almost certainly forgotten, moved on, and built an entirely different life. And yet, completely without warning, it plays again. In full detail. In the middle of the shower, in the middle of the night, in the middle of a completely unrelated moment that had nothing to do with anything. The wrong thing you said, the thing that came out wrong. The moment you tripped, stumbled, laughed at the wrong time, said the name incorrectly, sent the message to the wrong person. Your face gets hot. Your body tenses. You might actually make a noise, a groan, a wince, an involuntary sound of pure retroactive mortification. And then you think, why? Why is this still here? Why is my brain doing this to me? The answer is fascinating and deeply human. And once you understand it, the replay will never quite have the same power over you again. Let's start with something that sounds strange. The brain does not replay embarrassing moments to torture you. It replays them because it is trying to protect you. Your brain has a threat monitoring system that never fully switches off. Its job, the job it has been doing for hundreds of thousands of years, is to scan for things that went wrong and figure out why, so that they don't go wrong again. It is essentially a quality control system, running constantly on everything you've ever done, and social mistakes. Moments of embarrassment, rejection, humiliation register in this system as high-priority incidents. Not because they are physically dangerous, but because, for most of human evolutionary history, social failure was dangerous. Being laughed at, excluded, or seen as incompetent by your tribe was a threat to your standing. And your standing in the group was, as we've talked about before, the difference between survival and its absence. So the brain flags these moments, files them, and returns to them again and again, not out of cruelty, out of a misguided, relentless, genuinely well-intentioned attempt to make sure it never happens again. Psychologists have a name for this process. They call it the ruminative cycle, and it has a very specific structure. Something triggers the memory, a smell, a sound, a vaguely similar social situation. The memory surfaces. The brain re-experiences the emotional content of the moment, the shame, the embarrassment, the heat in the face, almost as vividly as the first time. And then it begins its analysis. What went wrong? What should have been said instead? What the other person must have thought? What you should do differently next time? The analysis never fully completes. Because the situation is over, it cannot be changed. And the brain, which is trying to prepare you for a future version of this moment, keeps cycling back through it, looking for an answer it can never find. The loop doesn't close, and so it keeps running. There's something else driving this, something called the self-conscious emotion system. Embarrassment, shame, and humiliation are not just feelings. They are a specific category of emotion that evolved specifically to regulate social behavior. When you feel shame after doing something socially wrong, your brain is running a program designed to signal to yourself and others that you understand the social rules, that you know you violated them, and that you are unlikely to do so again. This is why embarrassment feels so physical. The blushing, the body contraction, the involuntary wince. These are not just internal experiences. They're social signals, evolved displays that communicate contrition and self-awareness to the group. And the replay is part of that system too. It is the brain rehearsing the lesson, making sure the social rule is deeply encoded, making sure you never forget what happens when you get it wrong. The problem is that the system was designed for a world where the social group watching you is the same 30 people every day for your entire life, where a mistake made in front of that group had lasting, visible consequences. Not for a world where the person who watched you trip over in a coffee shop in 2014 has never thought about you since. Here is the thing that changes everything. The intensity of your memory of that moment is almost never matched by anyone else's memory of the same moment. We have talked about this before. the spotlight effect, the way the brain dramatically overestimates how much attention other people pay to our mistakes. But it goes even deeper with embarrassing memories. Research consistently shows that the person who did the embarrassing thing remembers it with far greater clarity, far greater emotional intensity, and far longer duration than anyone who witnessed it. The audience, if there even was one, has almost certainly forgotten entirely. The event lives in vivid, mortifying detail inside one person's head. The person it happened to. You're the only cinema still showing this film. So what actually stops the cycle? Because understanding the mechanism is useful. But lying in bed at 3 a.m. when the brain decides to screen its greatest hits is a different situation entirely. The research points to something that feels counterintuitive. The more you try to suppress the memory, push it down, refuse to engage with it, change the subject inside your own head, the stronger it becomes. Suppression increases the frequency and intensity of intrusive memories. This is sometimes called the rebound effect. The harder you push something away, the harder it pushes back. What actually works is a gentle, deliberate shift in perspective. Instead of experiencing the memory from inside it, feeling the heat, reliving the moment through your own eyes, try observing it from the outside, like watching it happen to someone else. Research shows that this small shift in perspective dramatically reduces the emotional intensity of the replay. The brain is still processing the memory, but the self-conscious emotion system is less activated when you are the observer rather than the participant. You're not weak for replaying these moments. You're not broken for cringing at something that happened before some people reading this were born. You are running an ancient social protection program in a world that has moved on without it. The brain that replays your embarrassments is the same brain that kept your ancestors in good standing with their tribe. It is trying to protect your belonging, your safety, your place. It just doesn't know that the moment is over. And neither does anyone else who is there.